Hello, this is the NHexit podcast of sorts. This is Monday, March 18th. This is Russell Canning. I'm starting the recording and I'm going to be joined by Chris in a while, and he will tell us what it was like at the Liberty Forum this weekend. We had an NHexit table there, and he can tell us the reactions of people or what he learned and things like that. Until he comes here, I will mention a couple of the articles that I'm going to post as a blog. There was a good article in the Granite Grok, GROK.com, and it's under Secession or Statehood is the name of the article. And a guy from Belknap County is saying that why he thinks it's a good idea for us to secede, but he also thinks it's a good idea for Belknap County to be its own state. So we'll see what else he wants to post. There was a good article at Abbeville Institute. I don't know how to say that exactly. ABBEVILLE Institute.org. What if secession happens now? And that was a good article talking about what's happening right now and why the states can leave. Another article I put up on Twitter and Facebook recently was a biotech boom article about how there's a building in the Manchester Mill Yard that's getting a lot of interesting stuff going on. It's New Hampshire Magazine, nhmagazine.com, biotech-boom. I posted and let's see, what else do we have? The Dallas Express ran a thing about Jason Gerhardt under the title Granite State Rep Talks Texit Support. He was interacting with the Texit guys. So that's what that's the stuff I'm going to put in our article. Chris will join us in a while to talk. So the Liberty Forum happened in Nashua a little bit on Friday, some Friday, all day Saturday, and a little bit Sunday. And Mr. Penguin and Bonnie and maybe some other people had a table there, so they would have been handing out literature, talking to people, and interacting. We'll see what happens. What happened there, and then it's normally on Sunday also, but this time it didn't. It ended sooner than that. Let's see here. One of the other things that we talked about last time that didn't get recorded is Matt C. was talking to some people, and they were giving him the idea of New Hampshire joining, once it secedes, into the British Commonwealth. My first reaction was, well, that's kind of, I didn't ever think of that, or that's from left field. But the more you think about it, you go, oh, that kind of makes sense. One of the things that's interesting about the British Commonwealth, it's got a whole bunch of countries in it. There's a big variety of countries in it, from little tiny Caribbean islands to random little countries that used to be part of the British Empire. And then it's got things like Canada, and then it's got Pakistan and India. So it's got these massive countries, and if New Hampshire was to join it, we would just be one of the little countries, like the little Caribbean countries, which we would have a lot in common with. And the other thing that's another factor in that group is that it's not a military thing. Hey, Mr. Penguin is jumping in now.
Hey,
And
what's
the
going
other
on?
thing that they said was that I was noticing about that was that it um, people have left the Commonwealth and come back. You can come and go from the British Commonwealth. So, all right, I can't hear you, Mr. Penguin.
You can't hear me?
There I go. I can hear you now.
Okay.
Okay, so I already started recording. I've been talking for 5, 10 minutes. So I've already told people that you were going to come on and tell us what happened this weekend.
Yeah, so we set up a booth at New Hampshire Liberty Forum, an NHexit booth and table, and we talked to people, lots of people. See, there was one person. Some of these people are not from New Hampshire, but they're people who might be looking to move to New Hampshire. And so I talked to one lady who was interested, at least. And a lot of people, there's a lot of supporters already at Liberty Forum that attend Liberty Forum, given that it's a libertarian event and one of the foundation principles or the history of it, at least, it started with independence or an idea of independence. So even though Jason Soren sort of backtracked on that, it didn't change the fact that as a general, group of people, free staters are very much pro independence, I think. So
Out of the people you talked to, how many of them would you say were locals, and how many, what percentage are visitors?
um it's a good question. I didn't ask that question like with every person I talked to, so it's hard to know. But there were definitely some people who I talked to that were visiting. Um, and there were people who there were also people I knew, who came up to say hi because they were friendly and they know me and they know what we're doing already. I don't think NHexit is a new concept within the Free State Project. So um, from that perspective, I think people were already pretty well aware of its existence, given it's been
Yeah,
around a decade. But
yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next, but that kind of makes sense. Is that how many people So most people, this was not new to them.
no, not at all. I feel like the value in it was more in honestly representing libertarians at a libertarian event. Just because there's so many conservatives in sheep's clothing that attend, and the whole idea of independence, I think, it really sits well with people who are really libertarian, as opposed to just in sheep's clothing. And I think most of the people who are attending are libertarian, but people like vendors, as an example, a lot of them are not really libertarian. So you kind of get this impression that you're not really at a libertarian event. And anyway, so but I think the people who come and they see, oh, there's an independence thing going on here, and you get to talking to them, they all of a sudden realize, okay, this really is a libertarian event. It's this sort of weird behavior of the FSP Incorporated. It gets eroded once people realize that most of the people who move are libertarian, despite the fact that there's groups that are really more conservative, at these events. One person, just as an example of this, one person that came up to me first time at Liberty Forum, they were there with a schooling. She was there with like an education group, and they weren't pro voucher, but they weren't anti voucher school vouchers. But their key focus was unfunded, was in there, is kind of in their marketing basically. And she was one of the people who was telling me how she didn't feel like there were this was like libertarians here. And this is this is the person I had to explain it. And I said, no, you're actually the you what you well she told me, then she told me what she believed, and she went on about how she doesn't believe in school vouchers, and she wants unfunded. She doesn't think any of it anyway. So I was telling her, no, this is your view is actually the most libertarian as you can get, and it's what most people, most of the libertarians who move here that's what they would agree with. Um, you know, despite that, you're seeing other school because there was like probably like 3 or 4 different groups of like schooling groups or whatever, and like most of them were these pro voucher things. And anyway, so that was just sort of an example, but it wasn't just that. That was just sort of an example. And but I had to go on and tell her, there's other things that FSP has done too. Like they have, they haven't kicked out people who are nudists, but they've cornered them because of some Christian groups. And I'm not saying all the Christians are like that, but some of them, a very small number of them are. And the Free State Project has made a decision to do things that are appealing to a more conservative audience as opposed to a more libertarian audience, and it has undermined the message. And one of the reasons I was there and I felt like I needed to attend was explicitly to make sure that people who are libertarians continue to move, and that because most of the people who do move are libertarian. So
Now, also, what you're talking about is just, the one thing with the FSP and Pork Fest, right? Because other than that, it doesn't ever come up,
there's
right?
there's other things that the FSP has done that has, or people who are Dennis, for example, he gave space that was paid for by the Free State Project, even though he claimed it wasn't a Free State Project or something. But anyway, it was funded by the Free State Project. He admitted it. To I'm trying to think who the guy was. One of the I think it was it Kennedy? And then they had the no gun. They had gun restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
That was just sort of another example of
Mm-hmm.
things that are kind of sending this very weird message. We're supposed to be pro freedom, but then the FSP is supporting an event where they're going to restrict guns, and it brings in people who may not be libertarian, but maybe, I'm not sure if they were more conservative. It sounded like maybe they were bringing it was attracting people who were more conservative. Anyway, the whole point was it just seemed to erode the whole message of like, is this a libertarian event or not?
Mm-hmm. It seems like people get swayed by politicians and stuff like that. It's funny how the U.S. national race for president seems to affect so many people so much. So it
Yeah,
kind of it
I
changes everything.
I don't know. I got the feeling that a lot of the people who attended like the last Pork Fest were not there for anything relating to libertarianism or the Free State Project. They were there to see the Kennedy. Is it Kennedy Jr.? Was that his name? I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
that guy, and it wasn't libertarians. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. There were libertarians there, lots of them, but that year in particular felt like there were a lot more people who were not libertarians. They were coming for the fest, but not for the Free State Project.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
well,
Out of the people that you talked to, how many of them like were coming by and liking the idea, or what did you feel like with the crowds that were there
oh,
at the Liberty Forum?
I didn't have a single person that I talked to who wasn't in favor of independence. The only person that I actually noticed that passed me but didn't talk to me who was against independence was Jason Sorens. So like, yeah, I mean, this is it's crazy. It's like we have people who everybody supports independence, but within this crowd, I mean, but the person who wrote the essay, like, yeah, I don't know. Don't
Well,
ask me.
also last year I talked to one guy that I remember, one of the Goldback guys. He has a place in Manchester, I think now.
Yeah,
And when he realized he was talking to people that were secessionists, he was like, he was, like he couldn't believe it, and he really opposed it.
I
So,
yeah, I don't
and he
want to
was
say
like 3 tables down, from us.
yeah, I don't want to say I haven't run into anybody, at these types at either Porkfest or Liberty Forum in the past. I mean, I don't want to say that I've never run anybody who's been not in favor or independence. I know I have, at least on an occasion or two, I have run somebody, but I don't know, it seems to be that at least, again, it's hard to know for sure, but from appearances, it seems to me like our group is almost entirely in favor of independence, and it's just Jason Sorens mostly that is like making it out as if it's not, and maybe a couple people like closely associated with them that are kind of backing up that position to give the impression that we're not all for independence. But
Well, I saw some pictures that had Jason Osborne in some of the photos, and I know he's against secession.
okay,
Remember, he's part of the Republican leadership
yeah,
in New Hampshire, and they've opposed our bills.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I know
yeah.
he was
No,
there.
like I said, I'm not saying there isn't anybody, but it doesn't. It seems like a very, very, very small number of people, and they're trying to make it sound like there's a lot of libertarians that are not for independence, and I don't think
Hmm.
that's the case. That's not the impression I'm getting talking to people. But I, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just a work perspective. Maybe it's just because nobody wants to talk to me who's against secession that's libertarian. I don't
Well,
know.
that's what I'm also guessing is that some people might walk past you, and if they don't support secession, then they just don't talk to you at that
Yeah,
table.
right, right,
That's
right. And
possible.
that would make sense, I think, but I don't know. I mean, people walk up to the table not even knowing like what it is until they start talking to you.
Hmm.
But when they do, they support independence. So I'm not sure. It still
Yeah,
feels to me like it's very, very heavily lopsided in favor of independence than not. But
yeah. And then this year there was no independence uh, panel or speech
no,
or
there was
session.
a roundtable discussion actually,
Oh,
and
okay.
I
What day did that happen?
filmed it. I believe that was on Friday.
Okay, but yeah, so I haven't seen any of that footage. You saying you filmed it or who did?
Yeah, I filmed it. I got it on video,
Oh,
so
okay, cool.
hopefully I'll find some time to post that
Okay,
somewhere.
and did anybody else film it, or did the were you the only one, or does the forum do it too?
Supposedly, somebody else filmed it. I think that whoever it was part of New Hampshire Liberty Forum, but I'm not 100% positive. I've only got that information third hand. So,
Who were the people that were speaking at it?
let's see, Matt, I believe it was Carla Garrick, and the guy I can't think of his name, Club 75 Alliance. I don't know if you guys know who that is.
Yeah, okay, Steve Valet.
Yeah, yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
okay, cool. All right. I hadn't seen it in the lineup, but that's good. So that means we've done this like 2 or 3 years in a row, right?
Yeah. And actually, thinking about it again, there was another independence talk that was given at Fest, and that had a large crowd of people in attendance,
Mm-hmm.
and that suggested to me too that we're probably almost entirely libertarians are almost entirely for independence, and the reason it kind of makes me think that is because when that roundtable discussion occurred, everybody was basically for like real independence and not the Club 75, not Steve's version of it, which was basically a watered down variant, which would have
Yeah,
been
well, he's saying we'll wait until we uh get the US to okay it.
yeah. And
Whereas, yeah.
the thing is, just the overwhelming response of probably every single person, and there was probably like 75 people in that tent, packed in that tent. I think every single one of them basically raised their hand. And I forget exactly what the question was, but it was something to the
Well,
effect
yeah,
of
they were
what
they were
version would you want
debating
to support?
whether we can do it unilaterally or if we need to have them okay
Yeah,
it.
it was something along those lines. But anyway,
Hmm.
the point that I'm trying to make is that maybe I'm remembering a little bit off, but it's not the point I'm trying to make here is that it was um, people were libertarians were very strongly in favor, pretty much unanimously, uh, in in independence, and not some watered down version.
Hmm.
So
When I talk to people at PorkFest, that aren't coming to our NHexit events,
yep,
I would say it's like 50-50 or maybe more that like the idea of secession. I mean, you
okay.
you get about half of them that think, yeah, that's a great idea if it can happen. Some people, their objection is, they so can't imagine it happening that it's almost like they don't like it. And then you get a chunk of them that, we just got to save the republic, type of thing.
Out of
So I get that kind of
curiosity,
variety.
when you're talking to people at something like PorkFest, the problem with PorkFest is too, and especially like last year, there were a lot of people who came that weren't really libertarian, and the people who would never move. Did you gauge like people who have actual versus comparing the people who have moved and people who had not moved, or who were just at the event? What would you say that the numbers are? Because I
Yes, I
suspect,
would I would say that the people that live outside of New Hampshire are going to be 50-50 or less for secession.
yeah.
And that once you're here, it's more likely for you to picture that that would be a good thing, or, something. Yeah, I would think that changes it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's particularly the case, and that's particularly the case because what we have seen at PorkFest, especially last year, was that a lot of people were there, and this is not entirely just last year, but particularly last year, there were a lot of people that came for certain politicians, not for for the Free State Project. In past years, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not just last year that people have come. There's always people there for the festival, but they're never going to move. But it was, I think at least some of those people are still more libertarian, even if they never plan to move, than the people who came last year, which seemed to be a lot of people came just for the politicians.
Yeah, that's possible. I won't be doing Pork Fest this year. I don't picture that happening. But you're gonna plan on going, right?
Yeah, I think it's important to go to these events. Just especially because there are libertarians, attending them. People are visiting and want to, see what it's like. And if we don't go, if libertarians don't go to these events, nobody's going to want to move. Like, actual libertarians aren't going to want to move here. So I
Yeah.
think it's important that we do have people, as much as I might not like what the FSB, might be doing, or people who are, running things. I think it's still important to, have people talking to, the new folks, the new faces, and explain to them that there's two different strategies, and unfortunately, well, most of the people who actually move are libertarian, and don't support really this kind of wishy-washy strategy. It does unfortunately, undermine the message, and just keep re-emphasizing. That's why, even though I oppose that strategy, that's one of the reasons why I'm attending this event. Because otherwise, I mean, I would like to boycott it, but I also don't want to undermine the very objective of having a libertarian homeland, so to speak. So,
Yeah. The other thing that I found interesting is when we do our little table in downtown Keene, then we're talking NHexit and that sort of stuff. And also, the good thing is that I kind of like it that the FSP never comes up because we're just talking to random people
right.
downtown.
Right. So I mean, yeah. So these events that we're talking about right now, obviously, are free state events. So they're different than other events, because obviously libertarianism and free stater, that stuff has nothing to do with independence really, other than
Yeah.
that the libertarians are already in favor, I guess, of it, because they've already got a better understanding of what's going on than I think your average individual on the street.
Yeah. Uh, So what's up with well, is there anything else that's going on? Have you made any headway on your sign order? Or is that
Oh
going to
no,
happen now
no,
that
definitely not.
now
Um,
that the
the
form's done?
Yeah, so I'll try and focus on that again. I kind of suspect I wouldn't get it, even if I had done it last week. I don't think we would have had signs in time. And then of course the whole. I mean, I spent 2 days, 2 full days, all day from like 6 a.m. in the morning until 10 at night,
Yeah.
basically traveling or at Liberty Forum. So that wore me out for another day yet, and then I have my own work employment situation and stuff to deal with. So I still haven't gotten to it, but it's still on the agenda. We did raise a little bit of money at the Liberty Forum in terms of NHexit, so that'll help with help pay for the table, and it'll help pay for the signs too a little bit. So
Okay. Uh,
so yeah.
the the other thing I know about is that Ian and I were talking about. He was thinking it was a good idea for us to be at the Cheshire Fair, which is like the first or
Right.
the 4th of August. And so I looked into that, and we can do a table there. And what we need to do is have people. We need to. One of the things is you're promising that the table's covered from opening to closing each day, which is like 8 in the morning till 10 at night, and it's
Damn.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then most of Sunday. So I'll need to get people to come help me so that it's not just me. But
Can you repeat that? Is that 4 days? You said Thursday, Friday,
yeah,
Saturday, and
it's
Sunday?
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and most of Sunday. It doesn't go till 10 o'clock on
On
Sunday,
Sunday. Okay.
but it's 4 days. Um, and we'd have one table. And I listed us as a place that won't be selling things because you have to get permission, an okay for what you're selling. So
Okay.
we'll be considered a nonprofit booth that's giving out info, and we'd be spending our time asking people questions and giving out literature and adding them to the NHexit.us and .org email lists.
Okay.
And that's what I'd be doing all day long.
Okay.
Asking them like one question and getting them to give us sign up so we get their name, zip code, and email address.
Okay.
So we can add them to it, and then
I
we'd be telling them what we're doing with that info.
Sure. That's I'm almost wondering if we have enough people who are going to be able to volunteer for 4 days. That's a lot of hours. I can certainly. I'm almost sure I'll be able to put in some good amount of time, but that's a lot of time
Hmm.
that we're gonna have to fill.
Yeah, well, we'll see how well we can do,
Okay.
but and I don't know the next time we'll do. I don't think it's going to be not warm enough this next Sunday for us to have a table. We'll see about next week after that, but that kind of stuff will go up. Other than that, I think I'm ready to close off the recording. What do you think?
Yeah. No. I didn't think we had a. I mean, we had a pretty good amount of stuff to talk about today, actually.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah.
Well, it's been a couple weeks, so and then we'll see what happens next.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Yeah. I mean, we just
Okay.
got to keep pushing forward, I think, and hopefully we'll make some progress.
Yeah.
um.
Oh, yeah. And then what I'm also going to do is when we do our table in Keene, I'm also going to be concentrating on signing people up and adding them to our mailing list so that we can
Yeah.
continue. Because I get people asking, well, how many people do you have signed up? I go, well, I might as well be signing people up then, because that's what they're wondering, right? They want
Yep.
to see how big we are.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, I think we signed up. I think we had a few people sign up for the business at NH Liberty Forum, but uh, yeah. I mean, the whole event's not that big of an event. So we didn't really have a whole lot of people sign up, but and I wasn't even trying to really get people to sign up. Like, I don't know, it just wasn't on top of my mind.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, having a mailing list it would be definitely a good idea to help. help have a mailing list.
Yeah.
Um, if we can build that up, and then the other part of it is not. So I've done mailing lists before, like created them, and I am terrible when it comes to actually using them effectively. Um, but that's the other fact. That's the other thing we need to figure out how to use them effectively.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'll talk to you again soon, and I'll wrap this up and send it out to everybody.
all right, sounds good.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye bye.